No one, I think, since John Coltrane has made more of an impact, not only on jazz, but an impact in music in the 20th century than John Coltrane. And I don't think anyone ever will.
John Coltrane, innovator and brilliant musician. Coltrane is arguably the most influential jazz musician of all time. He has collaborated with such greats as the brilliant pianist Thelonious Monk and trumpet player Miles Davis in the Miles Davis Quintet. And now, in this part of the documentary, what shall be discussed is Coltrane's impact not only on music, but on our society today.
Profound, to put it in one word. Coltrane had gone beyond any musician before in developing jazz into the finest of arts that it has become. Coltrane, to me personally, became my mentor. I studied everything he did. I have probably all of his music. And I would practice it daily. And we're talking about practicing for years, like 10, 12 hours a day, every day, and studying Coltrane, and to the point where I was stuck in his music because it was so deep and profound, and so many levels to it that I really didn't want to study anyone else. The whole history of jazz, to become the artist, in essence, is becoming part of everyone that came before you and putting it into your own style. And this is how you develop improvisationally as an artist. I think his most influential album was probably his first, called Giant Steps. And it was no coincidence, because he not only showed his exceedingly fast execution on the saxophone, but he also developed a new harmonic language which hadn't been thought of before. And he kind of filled out what we call the trilogy in jazz. Louis Armstrong, who first developed the improvisation to the art form, and Charlie Parker, who took that to the other next level and developed bebop and sense of rhythm and phrasing that jazz was developing into. And from there, no one really thought that anyone could outdo Charlie Parker, but John Coltrane came along with Giant Steps, and everyone knew John had arrived, and he was the third part of the trilogy.
On August 15th, 1959, Coltrane signed on to Atlantic Records and recorded Giant Steps. Although it did not use what would in the future be half of the Miles Davis Quintet, quote, it featured a dizzying torrent of tenor solos that harked back to the pressure cooker creativity of bebop while incorporating the muscular gospel attack of hard bop, end quote, by Colin Lorcan.
Coltrane, like many musicians of his era, had problems with drugs in his early days, and alcohol, and at the time, and he played with Miles Davis when he first started, and Miles was a tough cat. You know, he was the kind of guy that he actually led the music in different directions. Miles was kind of like the spearhead for jazz's movement in the 20th century. John Coltrane played with Miles on and off. Basically, it was because of Miles Davis that Coltrane became known to the world.
Train inspired Miles, and Train says he was inspired by Miles himself. He said he learned more with Miles, or from Miles, during that length of time he was with Miles, than any other source.
I don't think he stayed with Monk long enough to stretch out on his playing. He used to take extended solos with Miles. He started to take extended solos when he was with Miles.
Miles allowed him the freedom that Coltrane desired for his long improvisations, because now all of a sudden the records could be longer and the solos stretched out, and Coltrane became one of the great soloists. He can solo for hours.
The things with Monk were very intricate and very difficult to play, which was a feat in itself to play Trinkle Tinkle and some of those tunes he played with Monk.
And one recording session, it was Miles Davis that had Coltrane on the recording day with Thelonious Monk, the great pianist and innovator, on a recording session, and Coltrane showed up drunk, and Miles Davis, who was like really small little guy but tough, told him in a raspy voice, you know, get out of here, man, and punched him in the stomach. And Coltrane was like about a foot taller than Miles Davis, but he was a gentleman. Just bowed down, and Thelonious Monk came over and says, hey man, you're John Coltrane. Play with me. They formed an alliance at the time and played for, I believe it was the Half Note, which was in the Village in New York. And Coltrane stored up a lot of knowledge from playing with Thelonious Monk, who was an innovator of the music before him. And Coltrane became into his own. He came into his own after playing with Thelonious Monk, and started forming his own groups, and groups that would last for many years. I don't think anybody could ever, no one could ever pass Train with what he did with the music. It was just too much. But I'll tell you one thing, we try. We really try. Maybe that's what makes it what it is.